Moving from point solutions to unified experiences, a fireside chat featuring John Paukovich of Ent Credit Union and Nima Gamsari of Blend.
Thanks everyone for joining this really exciting conversation with John. And I hope you enjoyed the roadmap sessions and some of the demos you saw earlier today. And all of that is around the theme of moving from product by product and channel by channel experiences to holistic customer experiences. And something that we think about a lot here at Blend, and it's something well encompassed by Ent and by John, and that's some of the digitization journey that they began a couple of years ago and have continued to go down that path. So I want to welcome John to the stage now to discuss the transformation that they've gone on, how they got started, and where they're going in the future. John, welcome.
Good morning, Nima. Nice to see you.
Good morning. Why don't we give a quick background on you and Ent, if you can, and just to introduce yourself, and then talk a little about how what made you want to change when you started down this path a few years ago.
Sure, thanks, Nima. I've been at Ent 17 years. I'm the Chief Lending Officer, so I oversee both mortgage and consumer lending. And our first engagement with Blend really occurred 3 years ago when we made a change to our mortgage loan origination system, and we switched to a new provider. And at that time, we were looking for better digital opportunities on the POS side, and they had a POS system that we initially looked at, and we really found it lacking. So we really surveyed several POS options, Blend being one of them. And so 3 years ago, Blend really stood out among the three that we had looked at. Our Senior Vice President of Electronic Banking, who is an extremely tough grader of digital products and member experience, was in those sessions, and Blend actually came out in his grade book at 100%. So that was our initial experience with Blend, as we used them for our mortgage POS. And then as we had our experience with Blend over a couple of years, and we had conversations with Blend and saw your roadmap on the consumer side, that was something that really interested us in terms of how can we have an omni-channel, an omni-portal for our members so that they don't have to go to one application to apply for a mortgage and then go to another application to apply for a consumer loan. How can we simplify that process and have the one portal? So again, we engaged with your team and moved from there to our omni-channel for both mortgage and consumer lending.
And out of curiosity, I mean, I think this is pretty obvious to you, but just for the audience's sake, what were the benefits you were hoping to get by bringing your members into one portal across products and channels? Like, what were the things that you thought, why was it so important to do now or a couple of years ago as opposed to 5 years from now or 5 years ago?
Well, I think digital is just crucial. Ent is all in on digital, and I think many of the people on this session are also looking at digital. That's the future. Actually, it's the present, not just the future. And we're all in on that. And what we really wanted to see is there's really three major foundations as we look at digital at Ent. Is one, simplify. We want to make it easy for our members to do business with us. And that, is it simple to go through the application? Is it simple to, is it intuitive to walk through the screens? Then we also want to be able to personalize that solution. How can we tailor our screens and our process flow to our membership? And then also, want to empower them. How can they do more self-service? How can we let them utilize our tool to benefit them the way they want to in their financial service journey? So, it's really the future for us. And again, we're really being diligent about how we engage in the digital space, investing a lot in that, and asking a lot of our vendors to really provide for us.
And so at some point you decided to go with Blend for this omni-channel member portal, or member experience and team member experience. What was the putting mortgage aside, but for the broader suite of lending products, what was the onboarding process like for you? What were things that you liked, and candidly, what were some things that you didn't like about it that you think others can learn from, or we can learn from?
Yeah, clearly our experience from the mortgage side and the positive feedback that we received from our members on the ease of the process and the intuitiveness of the flow with the mortgage app, when we compared it to our existing consumer application system that we had at the time, which which was an offshoot of our consumer LOS, I would say it was adequate, but it really wasn't best in class. And again, our goal is to be best in class. So as we took the feedback from mortgage, our members liked it, wanted the omni-channel experience. Let's bring that over to the consumer side. And so what we did is in identifying those pain points of the consumer process, we sat down with your Blend team. I mean, we had a great relationship with you guys from the mortgage side. We sat down and initially looked at your first consumer offerings, and sort of how we would view them is they were mortgage light in terms of they kind of had flowed out from the mortgage application. So at Ant, we look at consumer as a much more streamlined process than a mortgage. Obviously, since most of those are portfolio type products that we're going to put, again, in our books, we drive the verification process, whereas on the mortgage side, that's really driven by the secondary mortgage market, and the documentation requirements are more strict. So on the consumer side, Mortgage Light really didn't work for us. It was too cumbersome. So again, we spent a couple of days with your team, and we went back and forth through a lot of iterations. And to your guys' credit, you really listened to what we had to say. I mean, we feel we have a really good consumer lending shop, that we know what we're doing, that we have a good portfolio, it performs well. We know what verifications we need. We don't need this much data to do a consumer loan. We can really shrink that down. And to your credit, you guys listened. It took a while. We went back and forth, and we're really happy with the product that we have now.
Yeah, one of the challenges with broader consumer lending or small business lending or banking is that the needs are different by financial institution. And so we obviously work with a lot of financial institutions, and that was what later on, as we learned more and talking to you all and others, and hopefully, I'm glad that you think of us as a good partner. We learned that we needed to create a more flexible platform, and now you're seeing some of the beginnings of that, or some of the early launches of that, and that's exactly because we felt the need to create that level of flexibility, and that's what Shweta showed earlier in her session. And eventually, I think, hopefully there'll be more product innovation. If we can make the technology very flexible, the product innovation can also be there as you want to create new products for your customers, for your members, I should say. Being able to do that in an omni-channel way, in sort of, in a few taps, is something that we want to eventually enable, and I think that'll be something that hopefully will drive a lot of innovation in the industry beyond just digital innovation, which, while I think digital is very important, I think, to your point, it's here today, it's present, it's becoming table stakes quickly, and it's part of a larger story of what we can do for the broader consumer base who needs access to financial services.
And I think the ability to tailor to, like you said, each financial institution has their own policies, their own requirements, and the ability to tailor that to their needs is critical as you engage a digital vendor.
Absolutely. So now you've been live for some amount of time. What benefits, if any, are you seeing now, or what benefits are you starting to track? What are some KPIs that you look at and say, I really want to understand better how I can improve how many products my member gets with me? Or what are some things that you think about, Net Promoter Score, and any results you've seen so far?
Right, exactly. We went live on the consumer platform in October, and immediately we saw an uptick in our web applications. We were running about 40%, then we had about a 20% increase. We're now 50% of our consumer applications are coming in via the web, so it's our primary channel for consumer loan applications. We are also seeing a higher percentage of our fundings also coming through the consumer application or the web application, which is nice because that's actually our lowest cost channel. We don't have typically a salesperson involved that you're incenting and is taking a bigger haircut out of that transaction. So it's a lower cost channel. It's also a very nice feature for the members who, I think most people really, when they engage digitally, would love to be able to self-fulfill or complete most of the process on their own without having to talk to somebody. And we've seen that. We've also seen a really nice feature has been the co-pilot feature, where a member is applying, and if they run into a hiccup or something, we can share that screen with them and walk them through that. We've really seen positive feedback from our members on that. Our Net Promoter Scores have increased as well. We're above 70 in our Net Promoter Score on consumer lending, which is, and our target is 75. So we're right at that number, which we're excited about. And We've also seen what we did is our single sign-on, which has been a really, really big benefit that we did when we launched with Blend, was the ability for members to, one, log into our online banking, access Blend, have their member information already in the loan application that we don't have to recreate the wheel and get that information from them. And then they can, again, during that transaction, their online banking application is their ID and their password. So that's worked very nicely. And then for new applications that come in, when they set up their Blend ID, that now becomes their online banking ID, so they don't have to set up a separate online banking ID. So that's been just a really, really nice feature that members have enjoyed tremendously. And then the cross-sell feature that we have. So if a member's applying for an auto loan, we've been able to present them, say, for an offer for a personal loan. Again, that's been well received. So again, it's that ability to hopefully anticipate some of the members' needs and provide that to them. And also key is just the simplification of the process, not have redundant data entry, just making it more seamless for them.
Yeah, and I love the co-pilot feature because it's sort of an insurance policy for your member. You know, you can always help them if they ever get stuck for whatever reason, and it's a manifestation of that idea that consumers will work across channels. They will eventually. Sometimes some of them will call in, some of them walk into some other mechanism, and being able to serve them is how they want to be served. Is sort of it's paramount, and it's not something that is easy to build, but it's super important to offer. And so that's one that I was excited about.
Right.
And I think the SSO, the single sign-on to your online banking or your mobile app, and pre-filling all that data, or eventually not even showing them that data, just saying, hey, we already know enough about you to make you an offer. I think that's something that is, I encourage every one of our Blend partners to implement that single sign-on on the consumer banking and lending side, because it's so important to remove that friction point where now that customer or member knows that you know who they are, and they know that you can serve them better than somebody else because of that, because they've already been working with you for maybe months or years, and being able to offer them that more seamless experience as a result.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Nima, about, again, your member knowing that you know them. And if you're having them re-input information, it kind of lessens that bond. If you've got that bond with the member, you've got that information there, why do you have to ask me for it again? Especially if you're, again, as a credit union, we pride ourselves on knowing our members, but if we're constantly asking them for information we already have, that kind of defeats the purpose.
Absolutely. So you clearly have a lot implemented. I would say you're one of the furthest along in terms of the overall implementation of Blend and all our capabilities. What are some things that you're thinking about implementing, or things that you're excited about implementing, or things that we don't even offer today that you would hope that we would offer over time, or new features that you've been looking at that you're excited about?
Well, clearly I think as we found through the whole COVID crisis, the e-closing piece is very, very important. And working with Blend on the mortgage side for the e-close piece, and also on the consumer side. So as we can, in the state that we work in, Colorado, finally just this year approved remote online notary so that we can leverage that capability. So that's certainly a key functionality that we want to implement in 2021 or early 2022. Obviously, the cross-sell features, we want to continue to be able to present offers to our members that are relevant to them in an easy format. We want to continue to streamline the process for them. One of the things that we're hoping to implement later this year is the fraud verification piece, so that we can eliminate some of those friction points. Right now, we use sort of the traditional method where we have to ask challenge questions, and there's somebody can't remember the color of their car they bought in 2018 or something like that, and we have issues and manual workarounds to get them through that process. So we're working with actually one of your strategic partners to implement the fraud verification process, where that's done electronically. We can verify the IP address, verify the device, authenticate them, and don't have to worry about those KIQ questions and that type of stuff. And that's, again, eliminating that friction in the process. Other verifications that are out there that we can do electronically, we want to implement as well. And any digital, really self-service is what we'd love to be able to do at the end of the day. The more that a member can self-serve on their own, where we don't have to engage individuals, As we grow, I think what we're finding, from a strategic perspective is, we want to grow. We're growing very fast. And realistically, we're not going to be able to hire enough people to keep up with the growth that we're doing. We have to leverage technology to make the people that we have more efficient. And the more that we can drive our members to self-service, one, I think it increases member satisfaction in addition to being a profitable way to do business.
Yeah, I love the, just going back to one of the call outs you made around the digital closing and the digital notary or virtual notary. I had to do I mentioned this yesterday, but I had to sell a home in 2020, right in the beginning of COVID. And I remember I had to meet with my notary, and that was when everyone thought that, or that was back when COVID, not to say it's not as bad anymore, but it was really a scary time. And I remember I had to meet with a notary in person, and it was really tough for me to have to deal with that when I didn't want to. I didn't get any benefit from it other than I had to sell my house, and so it was a requirement to sell my house. And then fast forward to a month ago, I got to use Blend's virtual notary for a notarization I had to do for something unrelated to the home loan process. And the experience was so simple. It took me not even 5 minutes. I didn't have to leave my bedroom. I could just do the process on my computer in a matter of 5 minutes. And it's only been a year since then, but it was a crazy juxtaposition of those two things in my personal experience. And it was great to see that technology come to life. And it was great to actually use our own service that, is our own Blend Notary that I got to use. Digital notary that I got to use.
And I think we're going to have to get our members to that point. I mean, that old habits are hard to break sometimes, and obviously traditional notary, and when you're dealing with large financial transactions, whether it's a home purchase or even an auto purchase or borrowing $20,000 unsecured, we're going to have to, I think it was Steve Jobs that said, sometimes we don't always have to listen to our members. We kind of need to tell them where they need to be. And so I think that's what I think remote online notary is going to be part of that, where once they get used to it, they're going to love it, but we've got to kind of get them there.
Yeah, and it's sort of a trend. I think it's a broader trend. I mean, we clearly see that video technology is there today. We're on it right now, live streaming this panel, but the technology is clearly there. And then the question is, how long does it take the behavior to change, not just of the consumer, but of the institutions that would adopt this kind of technology. And so it's exciting to sort of watch things like that come to life. And then I think
COVID helped get us there.
Oh, for sure. I mean, if anything, out of fear, if nothing else, is why I wanted to do my closing remotely. Not to say that fear is a good driver of behavior, but it certainly is a driver of behavior, and something that I think a lot of other people felt that. And that's probably, I'm guessing, and I don't know the exact numbers, but I'm guessing branch visits went down, and the number of in-person meetings went down with you and your members. And so those kinds of things that maybe historically could be leaned on sort of went away naturally as people started to figure out new ways to work with you given the change in environment. And so definitely think that COVID was a big tailwind for new technologies being adopted, which is awesome, and hopefully also new products being created as well over time. One of the things you mentioned was around this concept of fraud. And it's funny, when new ways of doing things come to life, it often creates new problems. And I think this fraud problem is one of those, where it used to be that most accounts were opened in person, and lines were opened in person, or loans were given out in person. And so it's easier to kind of verify that the person was who they say they are by bringing in some identification, and not perfect, of course, but then when things started happening digitally, now there's this whole rise in fraud. And I've seen horror stories of institutions who open up new digital channels, and then because the technology is not always perfect around fraud digitally, they saw a rise in fraud. And of course, like you expect, you open a new channel, people are going to take advantage of it. And I remember, this reminds me of a story of when PayPal first came to be. The way that they became successful was they really tackled the fraud problem. This is decades ago at this point. But it's a similar thing as banking becomes more digital and more consumer first, more online, more mobile. Technologies like the one you mentioned around having the fraud verification use things that are smart, like the device and the carrier, verify the consumer and use that to take away friction out of the process. You're not adding a bunch of steps to the process, but making it actually more safe because we're able to verify additional things digitally, and that digital fingerprint starts to exist. And actually one thing about Blend that we've intentionally designed is this concept of being an open platform. And so I don't know exactly which partner you all are using on the fraud side, but there's so much innovation happening, not just in fraud verification, but in income verification and asset verification and identity verification and all sorts of, or video technology like we mentioned. And so how do we make sure that we as a platform are able to give you the latest and greatest of all those technologies? Because clearly we're not going to be the ones to build all of those things ourselves. And that's where our partnerships and the way our partnership model works with these technology providers, because there's more venture capital money being put into those kinds of companies, and there are going to be more and more of those over time, is by having an open platform with open APIs that's extremely flexible, like what you saw earlier in the demos, is those companies will just naturally integrate into the right part of the flow and Blend, and you'll be able to take advantage of them if you want. And it's entirely up to you, but those will kind of have our best in breed set of providers that integrate with us and allow you to get the latest and greatest from the entire ecosystem. And so it's going to be hard to keep up with all the changes happening, but I think this open platform approach is pretty fundamentally important to that. And hopefully you're seeing that not just with the fraud providers, but other providers that you're benefiting from.
Yeah, and I think you just pretty much listed the checklist of what we look at when we're going to engage a new vendor in the digital space. And as I mentioned, we're all in on digital, and we're being very upfront with our vendors is, we need you to have open APIs, flexibility to connect with other platforms. Of course, you got to have the table stakes of security. You've got to have, resiliency, uptime, all that stuff. But we really need you to be flexible and willing to listen to us as well and take feedback. And I mean, you guys obviously did that. I think what was great with the fraud piece was lending through our relationship with Blend. When we saw, this partner, we're like, yeah, this would be great for lending. It's actually, we've done our POC with our online account opening. They kind of took the ball and ran with it before lending could, and it's worked out very well there. And so that's why we're just going to be a fast follower and really implement this as soon as we can.
Yeah, that's great. You mentioned a couple times now that you all are all in on this digital omni-channel approach or omni-product approach for your members. You're one of the, clearly one of the leaders in the organization. Did it take a while to get there, or was it sort of self-evident that this would become super important, or how did you get the executive team all aligned on, let's have one platform for our customers, for our members, so that we can serve them holistically? And what did it take to get there? And just share a little about how you got to where you are now.
Well, I think what's great is that our CEO actually was our chief technology officer prior to becoming CEO. So he's already well versed in that space and understands the need for what it takes to be successful in that space. And really from the lending side and from our electronic banking side, we were all aligned on that front. As you mentioned earlier, we really want to be able to serve our members how they want to be served. So clearly, there's lots of different business models out there. You have credit unions, you have lenders that are, all digital, and that's how you're going to engage with us. And some may have a more tech-savvy membership, and that works for them. Others want to be less digital focused and more of, say, a branch in-person footprint. We want to meet our members how they want to be met. So we have a good branch footprint, but digital is clearly the future. The trend is there. We can't ignore it. The millennials and the generations after that are tech savvy. That's how they want to engage. My kids are all in their early 20s, and they never go to a branch. They deposit their checks when they get a check, if they do, on their phone. So if we're going to be successful in the long run, look at the competitors that are really our toughest competitors right now are some of the fintech lenders and then some of the larger banks that have, hundreds of millions of dollars to spend on technology. We don't have that. So it's crucial for us to make sure that when we're partnering with a digital vendor that, that they're best in class, that they're really thinking about what's going to be there for the future. Because if we really want to make sure they're thinking about the future. What's relevant today at the pace of change that we're seeing in the digital space, 18 months from now, that's just, as you mentioned, that's just going to be table stakes. The stuff we're doing today in 18 months, the stuff that we think is forward thinking today is just going to be standard process in 12 to 18 months. So what's going to be the next level of that? I'm not sure we always know. And that's why we appreciate having a regular dialogue with you all to see what you're seeing in the space, and also that you lay out your roadmap, 6 months, 9 months in advance, which really helps us make decisions on, that'll work for us. Let's focus in on that, because we can't do it all, but we want to make sure that we pick those pieces. We kind of call it the speed to value. So if we want to make sure that we're picking the right technology, the right components that we want to deliver, but we want to make sure we're all in and that we do it quickly.
Yeah, I think that not boiling the ocean, speed to value, and then keep adding on top of it is something that I'm sort of a broken record about that, because it's tempting to get something that's perfect in front of your members, but it's probably hard to know what perfection looks like until something's out there and is in practice, because everyone has unique product requirements, has a unique technology stack, unique types of things that the footprint that they have, and so making something perfect is probably not possible without getting something out there and then iterating on it, or growing the thing on the foundation that we were able to roll out together. And so I think that speed to value concept super, super important. And I reiterate it. I mean, it was one of the core foundational principles of Blend. This is why it doesn't take us years to get something live with you all. It takes us months, or hopefully weeks, ideally in a perfect world, weeks.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's not something that is a typical approach, and one of the biggest challenges that I face is convincing financial institutions to put something that's of course safe and compliant out there, but not as perfect as maybe they would want it to be initially, and then can keep growing it over time, because these things are appreciating assets. We're building new functionality. You all are building more integrations, and so those two things together mean a better and better product experience for your members over time. I want to shift gears and just talk about something I briefly brought up this morning, which was this concept of proactive finance, which is sort of how I'm picturing a little bit of the future, where your member shows up in your existing channels, and you're able to have very tailored, personalized financial wellness offers for them in that channel, exactly for their specific situation, given their financial profile. Where do you see, because clearly we're not there yet, and we know we're not there with you and with anyone. I don't think anybody in the world is there, candidly, right now. How do you think about this concept of proactive finance, if at all, and serving your members in a way that maybe, almost to your point earlier, not just about the technologies they use, but almost helping them understand what products they should be taking advantage of for their better long-term financial health? How do you think about that at Ent?
Oh, no, I think that's a great question. And I think we sort of refer to it as empower. How are we going to empower our members to improving their financial health? But that's what we feel is their primary financial institution, that part of our role is to be their partner in bringing their financial health. So what tools can we provide to them to allow them to do research, to help us understand what product offerings they meet? I mean, I think it's a great question, because it's kind of that concept's out there. It's what we want to do, but how do we get there and do it? And again, we want to be able to give it to them in sort of a digestible format that they can understand, think about. But then we've got to have the product offerings behind that. So don't know that I have it is definitely something that we're thinking about. And again, it's that we want to get there. It's just, how do we do it?
Right. Yeah. And it's not an easy technology challenge either, for what it's worth. There's a lot of components that have to come together, whether it's all the data you have on your members, other data we're able to pull in,
right,
to augment that. Then how do we decision that across all these products, and then understand almost like in a proactive way, what's the next best product for them? That's a really hard technology challenge. It is one that you saw pieces of with Evan's section earlier, but it's something that we're excited to tackle. I don't think it's going to happen overnight, but we're excited.
Yeah, I think it's a really fun topic. I think it is, like I said, it's a difficult topic, and it's fun, but I think if you can achieve that, you've really locked in that member relationship. They're going to be your member for life if you can get there.
For sure, and they'll trust you because you've helped make something better, whether it's lowering their payments for something or helping them get into their first home or whatever it is that you're able to tell them or help them. I know getting a mortgage and getting a home when I was much younger it's changed my parents' lives, and I'm sure there's lots of stories like that will benefit.
Yeah, even if you help them in the future, you can't do it today, but here's what you need to do to get there. If you can offer them that, it's a win.
Totally, and helping them. That most people don't know that. I think the financial system is super hard to understand from a consumer's perspective. I think we are lucky because we get to see these products every day and we understand them very well, but most of the country I don't think does. And so something that's part of the mission of Blend is to make these products more accessible and simpler for consumers. John, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciated the conversation and thank you for being partners for 3+ years now. And we look forward to doing more with you over the next few decades here.
Thanks, Nima. I really enjoyed it, and hope the rest of the conference goes well too.
Yeah. And up next, we have a 15-minute break for everyone in the audience. We have a 15-minute break followed by the day's breakout sessions, which will be really fun to have conversation in smaller groups. And so stick around, join us for some of those discussions around cross-sell and consumer banking more broadly. Thank you.